Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's been almost a month since my last video. I'm sorry it's been so long. I'm excited to be back here with this review today. This is one I've been looking forward to a lot. And yeah, hope you guys enjoy. Let's get to it. Alright, so today we're going to be taking a nice long look at the WE Knife Company 604P. Now, if you're not familiar with WE Knife Company, they're a Chinese company and they specialize in high-end production knives. And so they have a ton of cool designs, but they do a lot of titanium, a lot of S35VN, M390, 20CV, a lot of really good materials, and their build quality, as we're going to talk about a little bit later, is stellar. They also have, you've seen Civivi's on my channel. Civivi is a daughter company of WE Knife Company. So definitely check out WE and Civivi. They have a lot of great options for a whole wide range of prices. Okay, so I wanted to show you guys what this knife came in, because I think it's packaged really well. There's the company website if you want to check it out. But it comes in this nice box here. There's the labels. Okay, anyways, and we have this really nice little nylon pouch, and you open it up and there's a whole bunch of fun stuff inside. So, you know, you got your WE Knife business card with all their information on it. Congratulations on the purchase, thank you very much. We've got this great little microfiber cloth, which I love. I love these for cleaning the blades, especially on these WEs and Civivis that have really high polish. These cloths work really well. And now this is something we're going to talk about, but this also comes with this proprietary tool because the screws on this particular knife are unique. So it's not your typical Torx bit. It has this little star pattern. So it's really nice that they send along a little tool with that. And of course, there's our big guy. I really like this pouch. I think it's slightly nicer than the Civivi pouches, although it's very similar. So there's the knife, beautiful. Just give you guys a second to take a look. I mean, look at that milling. Before I go too crazy on how much I like this knife, I mean, I'm going to get into it here when I go through the good, the neutral, and the bad. But, you know, there it is. First thing I'm going to do is a size comparison, because one thing that I didn't fully realize was how big this knife is. So we're looking at a 3.8-inch blade. So compared to your Delica size, I mean, look at that. It's big. And then also bigger than the PM2 by a little bit. Handle is similar, although the WE still has a slightly bigger handle. You definitely have a good amount more blade there. And as far as thickness goes, they're fairly similar. I think the WE is a little bit thicker. Yep, you can see that. So the PM2 is still going to be a little thinner. So yeah, there's that. And then another very similarly sized knife is the Endura. And those two, I think, match up really well. So the 604 is coming in at like 8 3/4 inches total length. And I think the Endura is just a hair longer than that. If you look at my mat here, you'll see. Well, the Endura kind of curves down a little bit, so it ends up being pretty much the same. It's kind of hard to tell with the perspective, but basically they're two very similar sized knives. Although the Endura is much lighter, the 604 is about 4.4 or so ounces, so it's a little bit heavier for its blade length, but truthfully, I expected it to be a little heavier. They've milled out some of the titanium on the inside. You can see it's skeletonized, and that helps reduce the weight. It's obviously not as light as this because, you know, FRN. But yeah, as far as length, the Endura and the 604 are very similar. Another knife I think is pretty cool to compare with, not necessarily for size, but for like design, is the Civivi Wyvern. And this is one that I've had for a little while. But you can see they have very similar dragon scales, which I like very much on both of these. Big difference, you have FRN and you have titanium. And obviously this is a much more expensive knife than the Wyvern. But yeah, it's just kind of a cool comparison to make. They're obviously different in very many considerable ways, but the dragon scale pattern is something that I think makes them very closely related. So, okay, with that kind of introduction out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and get into the meat of this review. So first thing I'm going to talk about is kind of the things that I really like about this knife, all the goods, and there's a lot. And then there's a couple neutral points and then a couple drawbacks that I think are worth mentioning. So let's jump into the good section here. Okay, big initial advantage that this knife has in my mind is what drew me to it in the first place. You know, the main reason I paid attention to it at all was obviously the looks. I mean, that milling on the titanium is just second to none, in my opinion. The level of detail on those scales, and every single one is just perfect. There's no like leftover edges or lips or anything. It's perfect, and the entire, both sides. So that was a huge attractor for me. And one of the main reasons I even first got excited about this knife over a year ago. Second, there's just a lot of really great little details. So one of the things is you can see there's no screws on the body side, or on the show side. There's no body screws on the show side. There it is. Because what they've done is they've just really gone with a minimal approach here. There's one body screw in the clip, and the only other one that's holding the knife together is the pivot. Very simple. It makes it look really nice and really clean. The Wyvern actually has that going for it too. It just has these two body screws here that don't come out on the other side. So, those both have that, which is nice. But the Wii is really simple in that regard. Another really nice detail that I think is pretty great is there's some light jimping on the inside of the frame lock, which just helps you get a little bit of grip. I think it looks kind of cool. To me, it's just those little details that I think make certain knives really stand out above others. And then I really like the purple ano on the pivot and the little screws. So the details are really nice. Oh, one other detail that's really hard to see is, it may not be visible, but you can just barely see there, it says S35VN. And it fits perfectly with that little lip on the scale. There it is. So minimal. The only branding is here, which looks really nice, and a tiny little logo on the clip. And then you barely have that tiny S35VN. That's just another detail that I think that's better than leaving the blade completely unmarked, because it tells you the steel, and I like that. But it's not huge, and it's not in the way. Also, I think the blade looks really nice. We're going to get into some more blade mechanics later. But the look of it, I think, is amazing. I really like the two-tone, the satin and the black. And I believe this is just a black coating. It's not DLC or, Cerakote or anything like that. But yeah, you can see it glinting there. I just love the way that looks. This secondary little grind here up on the tanto point looks amazing. So overall, the design of it looks great. That's a huge plus for me. Next is the action, and you can just see, I just hit my camera there, and it's hard to do on camera because it's such a big knife, but it just drops. All I have to do is bring the handle up and it just drops. You can see I don't have to put any wrist. It's such a big blade that once it gets enough momentum, it just flies right open, and it's on ceramic ball bearings, which of course is going to help it be super smooth. Just the closing is so nice. There it goes. I love the sound. I love the way it feels. It's super smooth. This flipper tab is insanely comfortable. It's got a perfect ramp here for your finger, some jimping. It doesn't hurt any way you do it. It doesn't bite into your finger at all. It can be a little bit obtrusive in your pocket, although it's so big that the curve kind of helps it. So it's not terrible. But yeah, the action is great. Next, ergonomically, it fits my hand well because it's a bigger knife. And that's why I've started to like bigger knives recently, like the PM2, which might be the most, ergonomically perfect knife there is. But we're not looking at the PM2 right now. Anyways, it's got kind of a roundness to it, which fits your fingers really well. And the size is just perfect. There's some light jimping here on the spine, which I really appreciate. So yeah, it fits my hand well. It's pretty carryable too. It's not too obtrusive in the pocket, which is kind of nice and something that you might expect from a bigger knife, but it's actually pretty comfortable. I do like this clip as well. It's not deep carry, but I don't think it needs to be because it's so big. There's so much of it in your pocket that it's not going anywhere, and it's nice to have a little bit to grab. Plus, it looks nice, so if it pokes out and you can see it, there's a plus. Last thing that I want to mention that's really, really good is the materials. So, like I said before, WE is always using really stellar materials. Obviously, we have titanium on the scales, on the screws, the clip. So that's really, really good. I personally like titanium a lot. And then next, S35VN on the blade, which is an absolutely great steel. Maybe not a super premium like some of these other things like Crewwear or Maximate or whatever, but it's absolutely going to be tough, good edge retention, stainless. It's going to do everything that I absolutely need it to do. So I really like that. And then one more thing that I forgot to mention that I really like, another one of these details, is this looks like an integral knife. The tolerances are so well done that you cannot even see, there's a little groove here, but you can't even hardly see the line, not until you look in the lanyard hole. Can you barely see the line where these two scales come together? So it ends up looking like an integral knife, but you don't pay integral prices. Granted, it's not a very cheap knife, but it's not integral expensive. So that's cool. Just another one of those details that I really like. Okay, so those are all the good things that I like about this knife. It looks amazing. There's all kinds of great details that make it really stand out. The action is incredible. It fits well in my hand. It's got good ergonomics, and the materials are stellar. Let's go to some neutral points, and then we'll close up with some negative points. So this first neutral point is one of the same things that I brought up when I did the Enduro review. It's a big knife. This could be a problem for some people or some places where you live. Obviously, it is not going to fit under a 3-inch blade length restriction. It's almost 4 inches long. And sometimes that's just more than you need, and that's just too much. And it's can be scary to non-knife people. Even though this, I think, is a very classy, sort of artsy-looking knife, it's still got that black blade and kind of sharp profile. I don't know. Just being a bigger knife in general is usually not super good in terms of the public's reception of it. And so that's something to keep in mind, and be wary of like where you're taking it. And this isn't like, in terms of the size, it's also can be obtrusive for carrying in certain situations. So I wouldn't take this knife running like I do with this one. This is not a sweatpants type knife, I wouldn't say. It's really comfortable in jeans. I haven't worn it with shorts yet, but that might be tricky. It's just big, and sometimes that has its potential drawbacks, but hey, that's why we have multiple knives, right? You have some big ones, mediums, and small ones, so you're ready for any situation. But yeah, just keep that in mind. It's a bigger knife. That may or may not be a problem. It has its drawbacks, but it also has its benefits, like it's really comfortable, and you have just a lot of blade. So do with that what you will. That's why it's a neutral point. Next thing, this blade hole here. I do really like the way it looks. I think it looks great, but functionally, it's just not for one hand. I can't, there's absolutely nothing. I mean, you can still two-hand open with it, which is good. I guess that's, good. But, compared to the Wyvern, see, I really love to Spidey flick this thing. It's really fun, and it's really fast. So in my mind, it would have been good if they did something similar with this. And, you know, I get that it might be hard to, you know, cut out this a little bit or make the blade bulkier, because that would get rid of this nice flat profile. So maybe I don't want that, but that's just something that might have been cool, you know, if I could use this and flick it, because there's just no way. There's just no way. But again, that's why it's a neutral point, because I do really like the profile and I like the way it looks. It would be nice. Maybe it's wishful thinking. It would be nice to be able to Spidey flick it, but not a huge deal. Okay, that's it for the neutral. Let's go to some really quick negatives here. Okay, so I mentioned we're going to come back to the blade. So unfortunately, we're coming back to the blade in this section. This blade is 0.16 inches thick. Now that's a thick blade, especially compared to like the Wyvern. And it's not like you know, like your PM2 is pretty thick behind the or on the spine. It's pretty thick. Not even as thick as the 604, but it has a full flat grind. So it brings your thickness behind the edge to really low. But this guy is not a full flat grind. It's a flat grind, but it stops. I guess it kind of goes full up at the tip, but either way, it's not the best slicing knife. It's just not. I mean, look at how thick that blade is. And I don't have a calipers, but you can even see from the camera, it's relatively thick behind the edge. Now, it did come razor sharp. I mean, we're cutting paper. Let's see if I can do it on camera. We're cutting paper with ease here. Turns out I'm not great at doing this on camera. I was just doing this before. But, so it's definitely sharp, but in terms of, you know, cutting boxes and, you know, maybe some other task where you like a nice thin blade, it's not probably going to perform as well as, you know, a PM2 or a nice full flat grind with a thinner edge, or even like this Wyvern, thinner blade stock to begin with and a hollow grind. You know, so that's going to be nice and thin. Just something to keep in mind. I'm probably not going to be heavily using this all the time for hardcore tasks. It is, you know, I paid for it. I'm carrying it. I'm certainly going to use it. So, you know, I need it to be able to cut, and it does, but it's not going to be the sliciest thing ever. So keep that in mind. Secondly, the other day, yesterday, I was fidgeting incessantly with this because it's so fun to do. And I found, after opening it and closing it, you know, probably close to 100 times, this edge of the scale, you can see right there where the dragon scales end, there's some sort of rough spots. It's smooth in this direction and it's a little rough in this direction. And so I'm pressing with my middle finger right there and pressing with my thumb to close the lock bar. And right now I don't feel a single thing. You know, it feels totally fine when you do it every now and then, but on the 60th, 70th, whatever flick in a row, which I guess most people may not do that, I was getting a pretty sore spot right there in the fleshy part of my finger between the two joints because of that wearing. Now, eventually I'm probably just going to end up with a callus there and it's not going to be a big deal. And I don't feel that every day because I'm not sitting around here flicking it all the time like I was the other day. So, you know, it's probably not a huge problem, but I did feel that. So that's one thing, that these edges could be a little rough on your fingers. But probably something your body will adapt to because the body is amazing and that's what it does. So not going to be a problem. But I haven't had this knife for very long, so I haven't had a chance to adapt. So yeah, those are the negatives. Not a very slicey blade, and the edge of the scales can be a little bit harsh. Let's go to some final reviews and get this video over with. Okay, final remarks, not final reviews like I said before. That doesn't make any sense. Final remarks on the WE 604. This is the 604P. I think this might be, you know, my favorite knife. Now, it is pretty new to me, so I'm very excited about it, but it's very, very exciting. I think this is the highest kind of quality. This is what I would consider my grail knife. Now, whether or not it fits into that price range is subject to interpretation, but that's what I'm calling it. I really love it. It is hitting a lot of good bases for me. Action, materials, ergonomics, just straight up design and looks. So, I highly recommend getting one of these in your hands, and they're still available. It's one of the Wii's earlier models, but they're still making them. You just gotta feel that action, and I think you gotta experience that milling, those dragon scales. It's just so unique. They have one other model with it, the Dracon, which is a little more expensive, a little smaller. That's an integral. Actually, I don't know if that one's available right now, but anyways, it's very unique. It's very well done. The production quality is amazing. The tolerances are great. There's just a few little nitpicks that I talked about in this video, but ultimately, man, this is one heck of a great knife. So yeah, I would definitely check it out. Try to get your hands on one, because I'm definitely not going to be letting go of this guy anytime soon, because I love it. So anyways, hopefully you guys have found this video informative and interesting. I'm going to hopefully be doing a couple more videos in the near future and not take such a long time off. But as always, thank you so much for the support. Please leave your questions, comments, or suggestions in the comment section, and like and hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate it. Alright guys, have a good one, and we'll see you in the next video.